So, after the likes of World Trade Center, United 93, and a slew of made-for-it movies that are kind of funny to look at now, after the I why new thing why fire you say I'm gonna need you at me side at all times. Consigliere. There were those that decided, hey, maybe it's time to lighten up. I wanted to say I'm sorry. I was in me mid-minus 20s and I was going through a lot of stuff. I think I never really processed 9-11. Line say, and I have hit a bit of a row patch. Really? When did that start? Well, I don't want to blame it all on 9-11, but it certainly didn't help. Team America World Police, hi again Matt, and Trey Parker, is basically one extended 9-11 joke. From what intelligence has gathered, it would be 9-11 times 100. 9-11 times 100. Jessus. That's, yes, 91,100. 91,100. Once again, like in South Park, they re more preoccupied with America's world policing-ness than the event in its fallout. Don't worry. Everything is bold. We stopped the terrorists. 9-11 is a favorite joke topic for Seth MacFarlane. Mrs. Griffin, what are your plans for cleaning up our environment? 9-11. This may, in part, have to do with the fact that, according to Macfarlane, he nearly became a victim of the attack since he was originally scheduled to board one of the planes, but then he had a hangover and he overslept. Your favorite holiday? Christmas. 9-11. So Macfarlane, more than most people, has a bit of a fixation on 9-11. Ground zero. So this is where the first G got AIDS. This is nowhere more evident than in the 2011 episode Back to the Pilot, in which Stewie and Brian go back in time, and Macfarlane's self-insert in dog form Brian informs his past self about 9-11, thereby preventing it. Time to terrorize the terrorists. But preventing 9-11 causes a Terminator-style dystopia, because of course it does, so they have to go back and, in effect, make sure 9-11 happens. I have a really hard time believing that a present with no 9-11 could possibly be worse than the one we are currently in, but okay. We see it referenced again in Tid, in the scene where the titular character is racist at Norah Jones. Oh, you know, I'm not a hot half Muslim chick who sold 37 million records, but I'm hanging in there. Oh, half Indian, but thanks. You, whatever. Thanks for 9-11. Thanks for none. Well, and here to make everyone else on this list look good, you bowl. We are at the doorstep of our martyrdom. Praise Allah. Praise him. Nobody likes you bowl. Even people who decree political correctness ruining everything don't like you bowl because he sucks. And he isn't funny. Postal opens with the 9-11 attacks and a comedy scene between the two hijackers. It has some of the worst-sounding adder I've ever heard in any movie, and it's so distractingly terrible I couldn't even pay attention to what they were talking about. Then you all have 5 more virgins than you have right now. Right. We re-talking about eternity here. Something about the number of virgins. They were promised being a deal breaker, and then they call off the attacks. But then the well-meaning passengers try to take control of the plane, and oops, they plow into the towers. In Harold and Kumar escape from Guantanamo Bay. Harold and Kumar, well, go to Guantanamo Bay and then escape, because Kumar looks a touch terroristy for this lady's taste. Ah, and also this. This is just a bomb. You say you got a bomb. See, here's the thing. I feel like taking drugs on a plane is still gonna get you in pretty big trouble. Like, not Guantanamo Bay trouble, but never mind. They spend about 5 minutes in Gitmo before going on a road trip and eventually getting high with George Bush. And the problem with this one, unlike the first Harold and Kumar, is it's not very clever. Like, it doesn't really say much about the post-9/11 atmosphere other than poking fun at the paranoia. And the scenes in Guantanamo are like, you know what's funny? Prison rape. It's hilarious. I hope this scene never ends. But we would see the white lady mistakes brown guy for terrorist template time and again. The Sacha Baron Cohen not very good comedy, The Dictator borrows from it. My 9-11. and it's also one of the only good jokes in the movie. We see it again in the Bollywood comedy Terry Bin Laden, which steals it pretty much beat for beat. Side note, this movie also features one of the more hilarious American accents in all of movieism. Gentlemen, I present to you Operation Kick-Ass. So that's what other countries must feel like when we do it to them. A 2008 episode of the Sarah Silverman program has Sarah do like a 9-11 tribute after repeatedly mistaking bearded men for Osama bin Laden and running them over with her car. Osama bin Laden. I'm not sure what this one adds to the conversation. That's totally zero. I'm an airplane. I am just flying around living my day. But meanwhile, in other parts of the world, there were actually a surprising number of Bollywood movies on the subject. One of the early ones is called Madhoshi and came out in 2004. And it begins with a family who's got one sister at a wedding and another sister who works in New York, and she calls home and they re-talking and um 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 oh no, we air fine paper. Oh no, oh no, this this isn't going where I what the fuck, India. Oh, and then the reaction from the film is like, okay, okay, sorry, oof, that that I mean, does it? It looks like Postal. Come on. Maybe that's where you bull got the idea. But anyway, most of the movies using 9-11 or 9-11ish plot points in India don't come out until after 2008. There was a dark by Bollywood standards thriller simply titled New York about a group of college friends at the fictional New York State University, which appears to be in New Jersey. Well, they were good friends until on day 9-11. It was chaos. Well, years later, Omar is tasked by the FBI to spy on his old buddy Samar, who is a suspected terrorist. Omar's like, no, not me old buddy Samar. He can't be a terrorist. And then, actually, he can. And while this film is flawed, the different perspective is interesting and honestly kind of necessary. For one thing, it actually calls out the Patriot Act. Interesting that a movie made by and for Indians remembered that the Patriot Act existed. Sam gets arrested right after 9/11 over a goofy misunderstanding, and then, after eventually being released, he turns to terrorism because revenge. But he's still a good guy deep down. Something you get here that you don't get in other media is that no one's born in India. And you end up with sympathetic portrayals of terrorists, which I kind of have mixed feelings about, but this video is long enough and we're not going there. Point is, these guys turn to terrorism, but it has fuck all to do with what they perceive as a religious righteousness. They just mad at the American government for having wrongly assumed that they were terrorists, so they became terrorists, which kind of undermines the message a little bit, but whatever. Mostly terrorists hate the FBI, not any other aspect of the US. I'm spending a lot of time on this one because I think seeing the issue dealt with from a non-American perspective isn't just interesting. It's vital. It is both critical and sympathetic to the US, even though it ends with the worst child actor in America and India combined to represent hope for the future. He's an old friend. Who your friend or Papa's friend? Was this the producer's kid? In an even more interesting discussion, the most high profile of the Bollywood group is the Shah Rukh Khan starring vehicle My Name is Khan. Khan. Islam. Khan. Khan. This one is a double-issue movie, as the innocent, virtuous, naive protagonist, Rizvan, is a Muslim with Asperger's syndrome. And let's just leave the discussion to the end. Let's just leave the discussion of that depiction for another day. The movie begins with an uncomfortable scene of Rizvan getting detained by Fitza for acting weird, only the reason he's acting weird is because he's autistic. And it is a pretty powerful start to the film, and it's based on Shah Rukh Khan's personal experiences. He's gotten detained many times, but this movie. So, flashback to before 9/11, the land of hearts and flowers and sunshine. He moves to San Francisco, falls in love with and marries a Hindu woman, but then 9/11, and suddenly they are persona non grata because Allah. This movie is just fascinating, and it could be a really long video on its own, right? But, like, yeah, things weren't great right after 9/11, but, it wasn't like every night was Kristallnacht. So, the discrimination experienced by Rizvan, his wife, and stepson mostly comes from the apparently overtly Muslim-sounding surname Khan. My last name is Khan. My husband is Muslim, which, okay, here's the thing. When Americans hear the word Khan, the connotations in order go Khan and Genghis and Shah Rukh Khan, but okay, I am not trying to make it seem like things didn't to get worse for Muslims in America right after 9/11, but my name is Khan. It lacks a certain nuance. Of all the world's religions, Islam is the most violent and aggressive. It encourages killing, or jihad as they call it, in the name of God. Inam inutibita. Oh God, we could spend all day on this. And not to be even more Debbie Downer over here, but like, over. Let's just say shit's way worse now than it was back in 2001. Like to compare, this is George Bush in 2001. This is George I also want to speak tonight directly to Muslims throughout the world. We respect your faith. The enemy of America is not our many Muslim friends. And here is the Republican nominee today. I think Islam hates us. Total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States. It was a different time. While this film did get a limited American release, this was not meant for an American audience. It was using an American setting to tell a story by Indians for an Indian audience. But it certainly has some interesting ideas on what Americans are like, from children doing a murder-hate crime to impoverished black community living in dilapidated shacks and then singing "We Shall Overcome." We shall overcome someday, and the sing-along is led by a character who is named, I shit you not, Funny Hair Joel. Yeah. Although there is some poetic irony in the fact that here you have a movie about a guy whose name is Khan and his goal is to track down the president and tell him that his name is Khan and that he is not a terrorist. My name is Khan and I am not a terrorist. And yet, here we are in 2016. Here we are in 2016. here, T T T T T T T here, here, 26, We actually have a Muslim American family whose name is Canon and on a national stage tells a presidential nominee that they are not terrorists. Donald Trump consistently smears the character of Muslims. Maybe this movie isn't so far-fetched after all. There are a bunch more Bollywood movies that, if not directly dealing with 9/11, then a 9/11-like event. But most of them didn't come out until after November 26, 2008 or 26/11, as it's known over there. The November attacks in Mumbai that were among the most deadly terror attacks in India up to that point. And this was not a one-off thing. India has had a big terrorism problem for a really long time. So a lot of Indian films deal with terrorism, and in these few cases use the Indian diaspora to do so. And I think that plays into the idea that societies have a need to deal with the thing that happened, but indirectly is more palatable than directly. So one way of doing that was to make movies about terrorism that don't take place in India, therefore 9/11, which is not as intimate or painful to Indians as 26/11, but still addresses that need to, to deal with the thing. It is, in the end, an appeal to hope, and to address that need to find meaning in shitty world events. Feels pretty relevant now. Meanwhile, back in the US, the trend shifted from films about the event itself to films about the aftermath. The trilogy of (2007's) reign over May stars Don Cheadle and are trying to be dramatic but still acting like Adam Sandler. Adam Sandler. He's a former doctor who lost his whole family in the attacks, so now he's a give who's just so deluded and in denial about his loss that he's basically drained of all basic human empathy. I guess. So here is a movie that is literally about coping with trauma, although another weird aspect is that everyone's so vague about what the tragedy actually was. Why are we being coy about this movie? Like, it's New York. Just say 9-11. Sandler's method of imparting pain by drama is screaming. Yeah, this feels like maybe your issues run a little deeper than just grief. Then there's the infamous Remember 'em, which was the not Twilight that starred Robert Pattinson. Although, Christ, it even looks like Twilight. Well, this movie is infamous because after 2 hours of unremarkable drama, I honestly cannot remember what the love story even was. Our Pets goes to meet his dad at work, and you guessed it, the World Trade Center. And then the movie ends. It's like getting rick-rolled by 9-11. And it's mostly out of nowhere. Like, there are some shots that kind of telegraph where this is going, but for the most part, the film has fuck all to do with themes of I don't know, innocence, loss, terrorism, something to do with 9-11. In Julie and Julia, the July half plays a mid-level bureaucrat attempting to deal with the after effects of 9-11. Good summation. Thank you. Yeah, I know it's based on this woman's real life, but it was the movie's decision to frame the families and victims of 9-11 as like entitled customers. Please don't yell at me. And then trying to make her seem like the beleaguered one, and the people who are calling her the things she needs escaping from. Another in the 9-11 as the backdrop for young love generous Dear John, adapted from the Nicholas Sparks book of the same name, and starring Channing Tatum, Zabs, and Amanda Seyfried. Yeah, I don't remember it either. It's boring, mostly. Well put, Tatums. You don't to drink. Nope. You don't to smoke. Nope. Well, they probably don't to sleep around. Absolutely not. See, Whitebread is on leave from the army, and May Anais is the girl next door. And they have a cute little summer romance before she goes back to college, and then he goes back to the army, and then 9-11. And here's the difference between something you might have seen like earlier on this list, is that this one is a lot more feelingsy than jingoistic. But I think that in and of itself is interesting, because in 2010, it's like we have already forgotten that intense jingoism that immediately followed 9-11, how people just lost their goddamn minds, such to the point that invading Iraq sounded like a good idea. See, John reenlists less out of a sense of duty or desire for retribution than out of peer pressure, and then again because his girlfriend dumped him. It barely touches on patriotism. It's all about feelings. And then there's the coup de grace, the tweetest of the lot, extremely loud and incredibly close. It is the film that wanted to be the definitive 9-11 movie, and it is so twee. It's like a feature-length Decemberist song about 9-11. If the sun were to explode, you wouldn't even know about it for 8 minutes. It's basically a fanfic of the famous photograph called The Falling Man. This kid named Oscar believes that Guy is his dad, and he's played by Tom Hanks, and the film features a recreation of Tom Hanks falling into the camera with the World Trade Center falling on top of him. Yeah, so Tom Hanks used to create, like, puzzles for this kid to get him to go outside and engage with the world, like a proto-Pokemon Go, but then 9-11. So post-tragedy, this kid comes to the conclusion that his dad left him a mystery to solve for a reason, and it turns out, no, he didn't. It was just a random key he found, and it belonged to Toby over here. This film was based on the Jonathan Safran Foer book of the same name, and his premise was based on his supposition that 9-11 turned us into a nation of children, and there is something to that. Again, we were all lost and traumatized and searching for meaning, but if we were a nation of children, it's not the innocent knaves who cannot understand how such evil exists in the world like Oscar or Rizvan. It to be more like this. Yalla, stop it. Take me home. No, I am the mother. No. The thing about extremely loud and incredibly close is there was a good movie buried in here. Like, it's the story of this kid who lost his dad in 9-11 and is trying to make sense of it, and there is no sense to be made. And I really do like this scene where Sandra Bullock puts that into words. I don't know why a man flew a plane to a building. I don't know why my husband is dead. But no matter how you treat Oscar, it's never gonna make sense because it doesn't. It doesn't make sense. I think there is a great story in the idea in this kid's search for meaning. He learns that there isn't any, that 9-11 didn't happen for a reason, and he learns to come to terms with that. But, as New Yorky as this wants to be, it's Snow 25th hour. It feels kind of outsider's perspective. Like my name is Han, they re going for a sensitive portrayal of someone on the autism spectrum, but it's so hollow, and we. But the worst day made the list of things a lot longer. What we see aren't characteristics, but a series of quirks. Crying, people with bad teeth, bags without owners, shoes without owners, children without parents, and extremely loud and incredibly close seem to mark Hollywood's last-ditch attempt to mine 9-11 for Oscar gold. It's just not gonna happen anytime soon, but I'm certain we will see a Titanic-style, sweeping, epic 9-11 romance in 70 years or so. It's still too soon, but as soon as most of the people who remember it it want to be. Yay. Media in recent years has drifted from the actual attack of 9-11 to the periphery, namely the assassination of Osama bin Laden. Zero Dark 30 barely alludes to 9-11. It's all about the hunt for bin Laden, which we seem to be more comfortable with now that he's, dead. Okay, so how do you know it's bin Laden? Because the truth is we've been on this up before. It was 7, and it wasn't bin Laden, and we lost a couple of guys. This is Burt Macklin's greatest assignment yet. And more recently, this thing of beauty. She demanded that he fuck her like we fucked bin Laden. Fucked bin Laden. Bin Laden. Fucked bin Laden. She wanted to fuck me harder than the US government fucked bin Laden. I don't understand why this isn't the next day on a boat. Hashtag too soon. She said invade me cave with your special unit. I said he wasn't in a cave, but although one of the weirder things I came across is that they're a 9-11 virtual reality game. By the way, we have this mini yikes. As with most historical events, the further you get from it, the more it feels like fiction. Like with Titanic, more than 1,200 people died tragically, but it wasn't weird making a sweeping fictionalized soap opera romance in 1997. More than 100 where to way back where should where you to where you could see research where the region cell the deal you But we're still not there with 90-11. There with a no, low, low, Thank God. I don't know where we are, honestly. I went to the 90-11 Museum on ground zero in researching this episode. I'd read from families of the victims that they didn't really like that the worst day of their lives was now a tourist attraction. I'd heard also from personal friends that there was a trend of foreign tourists and teenagers too young to remember it being loud inside the museum and using selfie sticks. But I did not find that to be the case on the day that I went. The truth is, I had kind of buried what those days and months after 9/11 were like. I went to the museum to research for an episode and ended up reliving 15 years of emotions that I didn't realize I had buried, and that we as a culture haven't really processed, which I think in part might be why we are lashing out the way we are. We may never fully process that collective trauma, so we just kind of bury it, and despite all evidence to the contrary, we act like we've moved on. Negative and unexpected events are the most likely to trigger spontaneous attributional searches for meaning, and I think we need to understand that about our culture. And it's an important element in understanding why our media is the way it is when it is made. That's why Spielberg made what was, in my opinion, the most successful 9/11 movie with War of the Worlds. It was a pretty overt reference, but that was what it was going for. Spielberg was intentionally trying to capture that terror, that confusion, that desire for retribution. We get back at them. We get back at them. That encapsulated that post-9/11 atmosphere. And that's why Man of Steel ended up being somewhat controversial for its similar use of 9/11 imagery. And then in response to that controversy, ham-fistedly doubling down on his 9/11 parable and its sequel. Some people responded to it positively. Some thought it was disgusting and exploitative. Hashtag too soon. If you're going to appropriate collectively traumatic imagery, it had goddamn better well say something. And that's another reason why the Marvel Cinematic Universe is overall less controversial. Because its imagery is so overtly 9/11 as that universe. But all the same, it draws on real-world conflicts. Lots of battles that are meant to echo real-world sentiment, but Captain America has never, for instance, gone up against Islamic extremists, or even Nazis for that matter. Just fake Nazis. No one in the Marvel universe ever claims a real world religion as their motivation. It mirrors our world, but not too much. Not uncomfortably so. There's a catharsis for a thing without actually talking about the thing. Even in Iron Man, while the trouble starts in Afghanistan and Tony spends plenty of time terror-assing over there, none of the terrorists' motives seem to be based in some perceived holy war. They speak Arabic, Urdu, Dari, Pashto, Mongolian Farsi, Russian. See. Hey, these guys are from all over the place and totally not Saudi Arabia. It's more palatable to an audience to deal with this indirectly than directly. That's why Bollywood prefers 9:11 to 26:11, and why Hollywood uses evocative imagery rather than the direct subject of 9:11. Because when they do, it tends to suck. And from a personal recommendation standpoint, I recommend that everybody reads The Looming Tower by Lawrence Wright. It won the Pulitzer in 2006. It goes into great depth about why Al-Qaeda is the way it is. There is one connective theme here, and that is the desire to make sense of what happened. It's why some people have decided that it was actually a part of a vast conspiracy, rather than the fact that, yes, 11 guys armed with box cutters were really able to hijack these planes and change the course of world history. And there is no one answer for that, nor really any satisfying conclusion to come to, because the subject is in itself so complex and all-encompassing. We all have our own conclusions.